before
In
the
how
year,
much? In how many weeks, Moses?
before the year is out. It will be business as usual.
Anurag, I would like
Well,
to
yes,
make
I
a
wanted to
point
bring
here.
you in.
I endorse what Moses says about the Chinese investment in India. I have a little difference of opinion with Mr. Ravi. He said that Chinese investment in India is $6.8 billion in the unicorns and in high-tech companies. The total Chinese FDI in India is, according to a new study done, I forget the name of the think tank that did it in March 2020, it's $24 billion. So it's not a small sum of money, and 24 billion, and there's much more in the pipeline in terms of pledges. And this 24 billion is in the automobile sector, it's in power, it's in steel, and they've also penetrated the Indian railways. So I endorse Moses' point of view that this is a very, very big market for them. But the fact of the matter is this, that you see, it's not a simple issue now of just India and China. It's a global issue. And the global issue is this, that the terms of trade for the whole world, and particularly the 4 Quad countries of Australia, Japan, the US and India, which are running large trade deficits with the Chinese, the terms of trade are against them and on trade with China, because China sells much more and buys much less. And the second thing is this, that when you cannot have a diplomatic resolution to such a situation, and you may not have a decisive military resolution, the issue is that therefore you go in for the third option, which is regime change. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting, that in 1900, there was something called the Boxer War. In the Boxer War, 8 countries fought against the Qing Empire of China to enforce a new trade regime so that they should be allowed to trade favorably at treaty ports and in the Chinese hinterland. And the trade, essentially, a lot of it was the opium trade, because China was the world's biggest market for opium, and they had the world's biggest collection of addicts, running into hundreds of millions of people. Now, of those 8 countries, 4 countries, India, Australia, Japan, and America, fought together in 1900 to bring about eventual regime change in China and change the terms of trade in their favor. And today, 120 years later, these 4 countries constitute the Quad. So I see that what is going to happen is that there are fissures within the Chinese Communist Party. There is a power struggle going on there, which is well blanketed. I haven't gone past that bamboo curtain to find out, to actually get authentic information about what is the nature of that power struggle. But it is my guess that there is going to be a lot of brinkmanship, because Donald Trump today is 14 points behind Joe Biden. And Joe Biden today has the election. Trump is a maverick, and he is the only US president who has taken on an activist and volatile front against China. And he's not going to tamely give in and hand over the election to Joe Biden. He's going to do something unpredictable. And that unpredictability, he is going to have the support and do it collectively with the Quad. That is what is my interpretation of things. And I look at it as...
And what could be that unprecedented thing, Iqbal?
I don't know what happens. You see, 3 US carrier groups are now guarding Taiwan, and they're essentially guarding 13 microprocessor foundries owned by the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
The largest.
The Chinese imported in 2018 $318 billion worth of microprocessors from Taiwan, Japan, and the US. Now, the Chinese government has told the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company that stop selling high-end microprocessors to America. Otherwise, we'll bomb your factories. And apparently, 2 or 3 of their foundries based in mainland China have been taken over by the Chinese. So the gentleman who owns this TSMC, he spoke to the Americans, and the Americans therefore have sent this battle group, because if, for example, tomorrow, just a precision-guided missile strike that knocks off 13 of TSMC's foundries will effectively completely knock off the supply of semiconductors that power everything from mobile phones to satellites for the rest of the free world. So the issue is that, will the US go to war over 13 factories? Now, some people say that this company is investing in Arizona. But that Arizona factory, when it goes on stream in 2024, will only have 3% of the capacity of the current Taiwanese capacity. So it's a very serious issue. I mean, 2 American stealth destroyers have packed up because of faulty Chinese microchips which had backdoors. There's a British destroyer that packed up. These are $10 billion worth chips that packed up during their trials. And that led to the incarceration, arrest of this Huawei lady who was the CFO. So it's a very complex scenario. And Trump will not give up without a fight, because if he has to claw back and win the election, he has to appeal to not only his 30 million committed redneck voters, but the independents who brought him to power. And today you look at the disguised unemployment in the US, it's not 25 million, it is 50, 60 million, because the US government is giving you handouts to pay your employees today. But the question is that once they stop giving the handouts, because there's only a certain amount of deficit financing that they can resort to, what will happen to the actual unemployment figures at the time of the November elections? Okay. So my bet is that there will be something, I don't know whether it's going to be in Taiwan, whether it's going to be in the space, or it's going to be undersea, but there will be a concerted attempt by the 4 Quad nations. And you can see that the stirrings of that in the Prime Minister's very rousing speech today in Leh, that there will be some kind of action, because the terms of trade have to be changed. And that is a decision that a lot of the world is taken in today. And the Chinese regime, which is actually using its economic clout to exercise get political mileage out of it, will have to be curbed, because there has to be some kind of equality on the world stage.